but if anyone would like to share or put in the chat just a brief thought, particularly on what kind of memory it was and where you were when you were having that memory. It'd be fun just to do sort of an informal poll to the extent that one can do that on a Zoom chat, a Zoom call. I'm just going to get to where I can see the, Okay, I'm seeing Rainbow Valley and PI. Hiking in the nearby woods with friends. Beach near Rishabuktu. Spending time with my grandmother on a farm, learning about animals, enjoying the outdoors. The beach. Learning to swim with my mom at the local pool. Outside with people I loved and who loved me, enjoying the beach. Building a snow fort with my sister and dad in one really big snowstorm in Beresford. With friends at a pond, catching frogs, building forts. Wild children. Fundy Park with friends, at the edge of the woods, playing with my cats and dogs, examining leaves and flowers. So this is kind of what I thought might happen. Most of us, in our memories, our favorite memories, the things that we remember most are things that happen outside in nature, often with loved ones, exploring and spending time together in nature. And I think that's really is a quick, unscientific study, but a demonstration of how much we do have an inherent connection to nature, and our childhood is linked in that, and that sets the stage for our whole lives. So thank you for sharing. Hold those memories there whenever you think about children's education and children's environmental health is my suggestion. So if we can have the next slide. Okay, and the next one again. I think we answered those questions quite nicely. So I'm going to give a sort of a quick overview, recognizing that I may be preaching to the choir, but the choir needs to, focus on the music every now and then too. But an overview of the importance of outdoor learning, and then just go over some of the amazing resources that we have here in New Brunswick to foster outdoor learning here. So next slide, please. Okay, so just a quick outline. I'm going to talk about the nature connection. Oh, and my cat Jake has come for his morning hug. Sorry, he just does this. Why children actually need to be outdoors and in nature, and the benefits of taking that being in nature into our school system and to have children learning in nature. I'm going to talk about Great Minds Thing Outside that Zomi already mentioned, and a discussion paper on outdoor learning that was released by the Sustainability Education Alliance last September. And then just at the end of the presentation, I have some additional resources that you might find useful. Next slide, please. So children's environmental health, when I was asked to speak, it's like, okay, let's go back and make sure that I'm using the language correctly. So talking about children's environmental health, children in particular, from the HWO website, they mention among, that there are particular environmental risks to which children are particularly vulnerable. And those are the ones that probably most people here would list off. Air pollution, inadequate water, sanitation and hygiene, hazardous chemicals and waste, radiation, climate change, as well as emerging threats like e-waste. Next slide, please. Thank you, Sadia. And I think we would all agree that it's really important to keep the bad stuff out, to do whatever we can to limit children's exposure to toxic chemicals and so on. But we also need to make sure that all the good stuff is there and that kids have the opportunity to experience it in abundance. Next slide. So today's children, compared to earlier generations, have less free time, have adopted, relatively speaking, a sedentary lifestyle that's set in the realms of technology and cyberspace. We all spend a lot of time on our screens, including quite young children. Children have less roaming space than they did in past generations. There's been some interesting studies, including one out of England, that looks at one family and how from the great-grandfather who was allowed to roam for miles and miles through the countryside when he was quite young, like 7 or 8 years old, you know, take your bicycle and go through the woods to the fishing hole and come back at bedtime kind of thing, to where the current generation really aren't allowed even to the end of their street on their bicycle because there's so many cars. And so the children's roaming space has shrunk, and they have in general fewer opportunities for activities that bond them to nature. So we may have our kids in a lot of sports activities, but they're often organized sports that don't have that free time and don't involve roaming space and don't involve nature so much. So, and this isn't necessarily a blaming thing. It's complex, it's societal changes. I'm not trying to put, you know, any shame or blame on any of it. As a parent, I am guilty of some of these things more than I'd like to admit, but this is our reality. So we need to make sure that we add that nature connection back in. And it's become apparent to me through working with kids and talking to other educators, and also the reading I've done, that when we don't let children spend time exploring outdoors and in nature, we are actually hindering their normal development. We are basically crippling their full development as human beings, which is extremely concerning. Next slide, please. So our kids are missing out on things that are essential for their physical development, their use of senses. There's many examples of that. I've talked to, or I've heard from teachers in the Fredericton area. So this isn't stuff that's happening elsewhere. It's happening right here in New Brunswick. A kindergarten teacher who 3 weeks into school took her new class out into the school's new nature trail. That was a trail that was a typical nature trail. You know, there was stones sticking up here and the odd tree root or stump. And she said you could tell which kids had never walked in the woods before. They did not know how to navigate what most of us would consider a regular trail in the woods. They did not have the balance and the awareness that, oh, I need to watch that I don't trip on that root, or, oh, I have to adjust. So that's, to me, was quite shocking. And of course, there's an easy fix, right? Take young kids and take them out to the woods and plunk them on the ground and let them go. So kids are missing, they're losing out on their physical development. There's other studies that show like children's grip strength has decreased in the last 30 years. They're not, because they're not hanging from tree limbs and so on and doing other things. Even monkey bars on playgrounds are deemed unsafe, you know, that kind of thing. So kids are also missing out on things that have fostered their emotional and social development, developing self-confidence and resilience, figuring out things in the natural world, or figuring out how to climb that tree is a real confidence booster. And it also helps you learn about yourself. I think proprioception, which is that awareness of where you are in your environment and how your limbs move and that kind of thing, is really important. And I always find, you know, the best way, and I test myself on this regularly, the best way to figure out how far you can jump is to try and jump across a little stream and not quite make it, right? These are learning experiences that come naturally to children when you just give them the experience. And of course, developing a bond with the natural world. Many of you mentioned in your comments how that was your favorite childhood memories involved developing that connection, whether it was playing with your dogs and cats, or exploring the woods, or frog ponds, building snow forts and learning about snow. And from that, you know, when you're out in nature and you learn, learn how to understand it, you learn to respect it, and then you love it. And that's been shown to be sort of essential for developing that sense of stewardship that our dear little planet so greatly needs now more than ever. And I just wanted to show these little photos at the bottom here. On the left, this was really cool. This was, we were out with a group of kids. I think they were talking about habitats or something. We were out in the woods. There were these downed logs. Nobody said to the kids, oh, go and balance on those logs and develop your core strength and see whether, kids just did it. All of a sudden, the kids were standing on these logs, shuffling, maintaining their balance. So you don't need to, do core strength exercises. You just need to put them in an environment where it happens naturally. And again, when you're out in nature, there's all those special little connections, whether it's a chickadee landing on your hand or looking down and finding a caterpillar crawling up your arm. There's all kinds of lovely little connections, an eagle flying overhead, that really sort of kind of lifelong impacts. Next slide, please. And just by taking kids outside, like in a school setting, these are both kids in classes that are outside. The girl on the left, they're all sitting on a tarp hearing a story. I think it was about the frog life cycle. And she's found a little dandelion. So not only is she hearing the story, but she's smelling the flower, she's feeling the flower. There's that full immersion, engaging all the senses. So often when we're inside, our learning is primarily visual with some sound thrown in. We're looking at the teacher at the front of the classroom showing us something, and we hear the teacher speaking. Whereas as soon as you go outside, you're feeling the cold snow on your face if it's a day like today, or you're smelling the flowers, or you're hearing the insects. And it's just sort of a full immersion experience, which is a much more, a setting that's much more conducive to learning to young people. And the little kids on the right, they were learning about winter adaptations and camouflage, and they're obviously experiencing winter. So that's exactly where they should be learning about that. Next slide. So, and again, it's been anecdotal for generations, but now there's actually sort of the scientific studies that show that there are real benefits of reconnecting children with nature in terms of their general health, motor coordination, self-esteem. Children play more creatively when they're outside. Their social development is enhanced. Mental health is improved. There's less depression and anxiety when kids are outside. Concentration and impulse control and academic outcomes all are benefited when kids are outside. And a lot of the kids that just do not do well sitting still in a classroom really shine when they're given the opportunity to learn and share outdoors. Next slide, please. And another thing, it's really easy to think about, oh, getting kids outdoors into nature, and we tend to think of the elementary grades. But we really need to pay attention to our youth and help them develop resilience across Canada and certainly in New Brunswick. Among our youth and young people, there are increased feelings of anxiety, stress, and depression. And time in nature is documented to be, I think, to a certain extent, a curative and also a preventive. And studies do show that our brains work better outside. There was an interesting study that, and the idea is that, our brains evolved outside. So we make better decisions. And I remember being at a workshop, a conference several years ago, and there were two Indigenous teachers who had introduced an outdoor learning program to their school. And one of them was a little hesitant because she wasn't sure about teaching outside. And she was the one teaching the language. And once she was coaxed by the younger teacher into, let's just do this, she was overjoyed to find that it's actually a lot easier to teach the kids Mi'kmaq language in this case outside, because the language is so directly connected to the land. And I think even for those of us who are not Indigenous, that's something that hit me it really strongly in terms of like, yeah, it makes sense for us to be learning outside, whatever our background, because that is our first home. And again, even looking outside at green spaces has benefits. So being outside is even better. And again, in terms of connection to community and also having a sense of belonging, connecting to your local landscape is really important as well. Next slide, please. So all this is important. I'm very passionate about this, as I know many of you are. And I think in New Brunswick, we really are in a wonderland for this kind of thing. And New Brunswick's greatest resources are its human resources. There are so many resources, so many dedicated individuals who really are passionate about getting kids and youth outside and connected to nature. And bonus is we have plenty of nature. I think it's said that anywhere you are in New Brunswick, you are no more than 20 minutes from being outside in nature. And for many of us, including our schools, it's much, much closer. So in terms of talking about the resources today, my focus is on school-based programming, as that's what I'm most involved with. But many of the same resources and activities are relevant in many settings. So I encourage you to look into some of them, whatever your interest is. And slow me down, interpreter Jim, if I'm talking too fast, sorry. Next slide, please. So Zomi has already mentioned the Great Minds Think Outside program. En français, c'est les grands penseurs se rencontrent dehors. And what we do, we're a collaborative group of individuals who work for a range of not-for-profits and other organizations. We have individuals, we have some teachers. Anyway, it's a wonderfully broad and eclectic group of people with expertise who are passionate about getting kids learning outdoors. So what we do is we provide outdoor professional learning sessions for teachers. So we're getting the teachers, trying to bring them inside and engage the teachers. It was interesting listening to Manuel's talk because we're all about engaging, and then the trick is sustaining that engagement. So what we're aiming for is teachers in New Brunswick to feel empowered and comfortable taking their classes outside. So the lower two pictures, one is a class playing a game, Serge. This is what we learned as the magpie game from a couple of Norwegian outdoor teachers. And we've modified it since we don't have magpies, so we now call it the Raven game, and it involves gathering lots of popsicles, sticks, and making a nest, and then stealing each other's shiny things. So a lot of running and activity, but you can do a lot of math, a lot of estimating. How many sticks do you think you collected versus how many you did? You can count by twos or other groupings, so it can really be very math heavy while it's still being fun and, you know, high energy level. And on the right, there's some students who were planting a vegetable garden, and one of them found this little spider with an egg case, and I was watching carefully because I wasn't sure what would happen, but they were so gentle with this spider and put her down carefully and then came back later to check on her. So you can see, again, there's that kind of connection. So even if you're talking about vegetable gardens, or even if you're doing math outside, there's always that opportunity to have other things show up that you can incorporate. So that's the kind of thing that we model with Great Minds Think Outside. Next slide, please. So again, what it is, and it's on the NBN website, you can find out more information. It's bilingual, so we run programs in English and French. It's hands-on, curriculum linked, and outdoors. We've delivered sessions all over the province since 2015, and I know it's well over 70 sessions, and Zomi will have the most recent numbers, I think. But it's a really fun thing to do, and the whole program kind of developed very organically from our own experiences. But basically what we do is we go to a school, 2 or 3 of us will go together for a 2.5 or 3 hour session. Usually we also do full day ones. So it's on site at the school, and we invite the whole teaching staff and sometimes other members of the staff to come out with us. And we run through a program that basically gives educators skills and resources they need to help them teach their students outside whatever subject matter. We give them a chance to work together and sort of brainstorm ideas, or to take the activities we give them and adapt them for their own curriculum needs and their own students. It's turned out to be also a very important team building exercise for the teachers. And it's been a lot of fun. I have learned so much from the other Great Minds Think Outside trainers, but also from New Brunswick teachers. So here's a shout out to the fabulous teachers of New Brunswick, and in particular, the fabulous teachers at those small rural schools that tend to be ignored. They're doing amazing work, and they have great ideas. So again, when you go, the benefits of going to a school and having the whole staff together is that it does get everybody engaged. You always have the early adopters, the teachers who've been taking their classes outside for years. And then you get the ones who want to do it, but really are a bit hesitant or don't know how. And you get the other teachers who'd probably rather not even think about it. But by the end of the session, everybody's laughing. They've had fun. They had some great ideas. And it does, the fact that the whole staff has gone through that, you avoid the situation where one teacher wants to make outdoor learning happen and everybody else just looks at them like they're out of their minds. So it's a very, it's been a very good model. This is just some pictures of, the top left is a session we did at Canterbury High School, where we're doing, thinking of activities with outdoor math by hanging numbers on trees. You can call that an integer forest, although it's not, we went beyond integers since it was a high school that we were working with. On the bottom right, we have Francophone Elementary School in Fredericton, I think, playing a high energy active game. Those are all teachers running around having fun. You certainly get to see who the class clowns are and who the really competitive ones are, which is a lot of fun, and they enjoy it a lot. And the other two sessions are a planning session that we had. The one on the left was when we were adapting our activities to incorporate the physical distancing required with the pandemic precautions. Oh, Zomi's saying upwards of 110 sessions. So that's Great Mind Things That Think Outside, and I could talk all day about that or take you out and run some activities, but I'm not sure where I am for time. So as Zomi mentioned, the Sustainability Education Alliance is this collaborative in the NBN umbrella, akin to the Children's Environmental Health Collaborative and sort of how it's set up. And this discussion paper that came out in September last year, I encourage everybody to read it. Of course, it's also available in French. And it documents how and why outdoor learning can be incorporated into our education system. We have a lot of things going for us here, as I've mentioned, and also the education department is hoping to incorporate a number of things, and learning outside covers them off quite well. So in this paper, we recommend that outdoor learning being mandated as sort of one of the key pillars of the education system, and that it be phased in over 5 years, heading up to a total of 10 hours a week. And I've lost the slides in my view. I hope that doesn't mean I'm totally out of time. Is everybody see? Can people see my slides?
I think Stadia's internet might have just dropped out.
Okay. Can I share my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe I'll just scroll down here and keep going. If you guys, can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Oui.
Oh, shoot. Okay, let me scroll down here. Okay, sorry. It's probably easier doing it this way than having to have poor Sadia forward everything for me. So anyway, we do think that this is a good way to go. Certainly the pandemic has underlined how important it is to be outside. It's the healthiest place to be in many ways. So under the Sustainability Education Alliance, there are a number of teams. There's updates on those teams on the website, so I won't go over all of them. There is a Earth Ed, which is a directory where you can search by your location, by language, by the types of activities, by the grade level, to find either speakers or activities or field trips and more. So I'd really like to promote Earth Ed because it's a great resource. There's also the Climate Change Educators Community Hub, which is a platform for teachers. It has resources, lesson plans, curriculum, and a place for fora where you can connect for encouragement and support. And this is a fairly new development. Right now it goes beyond climate change. And actually there's a lot of Indigenous linked curriculum resources there. So I would highly recommend that you explore that community hub. And again, the links, if you go to the NBN's website and under the Sustainability Education Alliance, you'll see all of this.
And in the chat.
And in the chat. Thank you, Zomi. And there's also, as Zomi mentioned, coming up soon, the ECOM, which is the Canadian Network for Environmental Education and Communication conference. That's an online conference, but there are in-person workshops and activities happening as well. That's coming up very soon, February 15th to 17th. And this year it is co-hosted by the New Brunswick Environmental Network. So you might want to scout around that as well. And as I said, and if you're looking, I would say, look within your own community. There's a lot in it. The members of Great Minds Think Outside include a lot of the organizations in the province that do also do nature programming, including Nature New Brunswick and Serge's group, the Groupe de Développement Durable Pays des Coquins, and Ducks Unlimited and other groups. So the one I'm involved with I'm with the Conservation Council's Learning Outside project. And these are just some of the activities that we do. So if you're in the Fredericton area or beyond, I'm available. And what I love about this is we've got a good network. There's more, I'm sure, that are out there that could join our network. We welcome them. And we all work together. So it's really lovely to be, where I don't feel I'm competing with other organizations that also do school programming. We all know there could be a whole lot more. So the pie is, we don't need to worry. It's a huge pie and we can all have multiple slices, and there'll still be more need for opportunities for teachers to get their classes outside. And a lot of us do collaborate and work together or help each other out with our programming. So that's all good. And again, I could talk about all the wonderful things that are going on that I know about, and I'm sure there's plenty more that I don't know about.
So we're a bit over time.
Yep.
So I think it would be best to, if there's questions, maybe put them in the chat and we can type in the chat, or you can email myself and or Nadine. But I want to make sure everybody does get a chance to have a break and look away from the computer for a little bit.
So these last two slides are just some resources to look up. So they're just there sort of as your things that people might want to have a peek at. So thank you very much. And I did want to say, this is for when I was thinking we're meeting together at lunchtime or during a break, just get outside. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Nadine.
Merci.
Merci. Donc, we will have a break for 10 minutes and we will come again in 11 to start our panel about the social and environmental determinant of all. So see you in 11.
Okay.